Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome. So,
Woo.
eh, welcome to Kobe Momo, and I'm here with Daniel Gatson.
Hello, hello.
Okay. Quick facts about Daniel. So, Daniel is a full stack software engineer who is amazing with the cloud. So, he has worked with companies like Oracle. Can you hear me very well?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. He has worked at companies like Oracle. He's really good with the cloud. So when I say the cloud, he's good with Terraform, Google Cloud, all this amazing good stuff. And I actually met him through a study group that we formed for data structures and algorithms. And he was literally the one teaching everybody because he's that amazing. So yeah. So Daniel, do you have anything you want to say to everyone?
Yes, I hope that for anyone joining the session today, just to really just come in and learn, right? We're going to be learning about the designing around system design, just creating intricate systems, going through all of the process that's typically through a system design interview. And I'm hoping that you just come in, learn, ask questions if you're ever curious. And yeah, just be open, right? Because we're all learners at the end of the day.
Yes. You're definitely right, Daniel. Be open. And also, if you have any questions, feel free to share, right? If you have any questions at all, you can ask in the chat and I'll definitely go through it. Or even if it's later, you can always ask. Okay, so today we're going to be working on a problem. We're going to be working on designing a local delivery service. So think about DoorDash, think about GoPuff, right? You see how you can basically get your groceries online and have it delivered to your doorstep. Some factors that we're gonna come into play is, by the way, we're started. Some factors that we're going to put into play is this. First of all, I want to my groceries delivered to me within 1 hour. So the distance between the driver and him being able to come to me should not exceed 1 hour. Another thing too is I should be able to order several groceries. I'm not limited to only one order. I'm not limited to only one item. I should be able to order multiple things at once. Um, yeah. Do you have any questions for me?
Yes, I think I do have questions, right? And
Okay.
then let me also type these things out, right? Actually, let me put boxes, right?
Okay.
This is why, just to make sure, right? You want your orders to be within 1 hour, right? Yeah, within 1 hour. And then you also mentioned that want to you want to order multiple items, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now question. You mentioned that it's similar to DoorDash and GoPuff. Is this like, um, are these items going to be for like from supermarkets? Is it going to be from a warehouse?
So it's going to be from a warehouse.
Okay, it's going to be from a warehouse. Okay, actually make things so much better. All right, so they are having these items. Okay, awesome. Right. Okay. And they can range from like similar groceries to snacks to the stuff that you usually see in supermarkets, but they're just going to be in a warehouse center instead, right?
Yes. So we sell things like eggs, things like cereal, different types of items, but each item is under like a category, right? So
Okay.
we have an inventory of an item.
Okay. Gotcha. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for this description. Okay. So, all right. Is there anything else you want to mention?
Um, Not at the back. I just want us to focus more on the delivery aspect. So things like payment, purchases, routing. We're not gonna go too deep into that, but it's just mostly focused on the delivery section.
Okay. Awesome. So, okay, so let me just clarify, right? So these are the main things that we do want to focus on,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm just gonna put this as the functional requirements that we have, right?
Yes.
Because essentially you want your items to be within 1 hour, you want it to be under multiple items,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, this is a really key thing here. You want to order multiple items at the same time. And then for warehouse, yeah, and just to clarify that it's going to be on warehouse. Okay. I think for now, we are going to only focus on these when just trying to implement our system. And then if there's anything else that we can implement, then we can talk about that afterwards.
Okay.
Now, in terms of the non-functional requirements, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, not that one. Let's create another box. I
Okay.
just love to have these things just being all clear.
Okay.
Okay. And so for non-functional requirements, in terms of scalability, okay, so you said local delivery service, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are we trying to have this regarding towards like users on a national scale? So it's like for each user, they want it to be based on their local area.
Mm. Yes. So for each user, it's going to be based on their local area. And when it comes to delivery, we're delivering. So I expect the driver to get the items from the warehouse closest to them so that it can be
Hmm.
faster. So based on their local area, correct?
Okay. How many warehouse are we expecting? Are we expecting warehouses like in the thousands, in the like 5 digits?
Let's say 1,000. Not too much for now.
Okay. All right, let's do 1,000 warehouses. And how many users are we expecting? Like at least 100,000 users?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. And assuming this is going to be like at least monthly active users. Okay. All right. Okay, so that's in terms of the scalability right now. We want our system to at least be able to handle the scalability of getting these warehouses. Now, in the case of our system, right? We want to have some type of, what do we want to prioritize? Either availability in the system or consistency in the system, right?
Mm.
So one thing that I'm looking at, right, is that you want to order items. And we want to make sure that anytime you order an item, that
Mm.
someone else doesn't like try to order that same item, right?
Yes. Correct.
Okay, because imagine the case was like, "Hey, I bought an egg, right?" But no, they don't. It turns out they don't have the eggs, right? And you already paid for your thing,
Yeah.
right? So we definitely want to have at least strong consistency in terms of the items, right? In terms of ordering.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's see here. The items, right? This is so that two users can't buy the same last item. Yeah, just want to emphasize, right?
Yeah.
Like you cannot buy the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We want to make sure that we at least have availability on checking the availability of the items.
And also availability so that they can always order, right? We never want a situation where our money is not able to come to us because no one can order, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then let me see here. Anything else that I'm trying to think about? Trying to think. We do want to check on low latency. Okay, actually, yeah, availability. I would say low latency because we do want to like essentially get like, okay, we want to see the low latency on checking for the availability of the items,
Mm-hmm.
but after we're able to see the availability, then we can try to order the item from there.
Yes.
Okay. Trying to think of anything else right now. Mm, I think so far this is good enough for non-functional requirements. Is
So
there anything that you are thinking of?
we have 100,000 users. So when we talk about the order volume, like how many orders can it be able to um, get on the system? How many
Yeah.
orders can we take?
Okay. We always want to make sure that for each users that we have, right? We want to be able to at least do one order per transaction, right? So at least like 100K users. Let's see how many orders would be a day for those users. Usually we only do like what, one item per day, like one order. Like we don't typically use like order services like multiple times a day. I recall, right?
Yeah, so let's say one, highest two, but let's say one for now.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the order can have several items on it. So one order.
That's true. That's true. And I'm guessing depending on if it's like a big order, I guess we can do like maybe what's the usual amount? Like, it could be like 10 items per order or something like
Yes,
that.
let's say 10 items.
Yeah, so it could be like what? We could say times one order. Yeah, one order, right? Then times 10 items,
Mhm.
right? So this could be at least a million items per month. Does that look right?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay, awesome. So at least a million orders are being ordered per month. All right. Okay. Now
Items or a million orders?
a million items in not regarding the orders. So a million items are being ordered around. So like we already have this is already going to be 100K orders,
Okay.
but the total amount of items is going to be 1 million items.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I'll also say 1K orders per month. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Next thing we're going to talk about. Well, okay, I think so far we have talked enough about the functional requirements and non-functionals.
Mhm.
To then move on to the next part, which is going to be what is the main entities that we're going to be working with for today, right?
Mhm.
So give me a second on just thinking about this, right? What are the core entities, right? Which is essentially what we're going to be moving, like revolving around our databases, right? We're definitely going to have an item, right? Just representing what the item is. For example, we get to say like eggs or something like that. We could say like what? Like this could be like eggs and cereal, right? Because we talked about that,
Yeah.
right? But next thing we also talked about is the actual inventory of the item, right?
Yes.
This is actually going to be mentioning about like, okay, this is the item, right? And there's no egg at this warehouse,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Right. And so, but because we also mentioned this warehouse, right? We also want to mention warehouse of what we're going to be storing.
Yes.
Okay. Then after that, we want to mention the order that we're going to have. Let me see. I'm trying to think about if there's anything else that we need, right? Because the order is going to store the item that we need, right? The inventory, and the warehouse involved. Yeah, the warehouse is involved.
Mhm.
I think so far that's all I can think about right now. Is there anything else that you think I am missing
I think each order has items associated with it. So I think we can just add one more for order item.
for order item? Okay. All right. And this is revolving around the items under order. Okay. Gotcha. All right. Next thing that we want to do is that I want to at least check on the okay, what kind of endpoints are we going to be working with here?
Mhm.
Give me a second. Okay. Yeah. So want to see on what endpoints that we are going to be working with.
Mhm.
And so with this, we're going to make one more box for the endpoints, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So obviously we need a get for this is going to be v1 slash availability.
Mhm.
All right. Let me know if my endpoint is looking weird. I'm not used to writing endpoints, but that's definitely something that we have to work with more, right? But
Yeah.
definitely we want to at least check of availability, right? You mentioned that you want to get items that are orders within 1 hour, right? So
Yeah.
of course we need to at least prioritize the actual like warehouses that are nearby us, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so with that, I say that we need to have a location of where saying our long is like here, right? And it's no and the lat yeah, yeah. No, we already did all that. The long is here. Okay. Let me see. I'm trying to also get the item.
Okay. So
Oh,
this endpoint is for getting the availability of an item, right?
yes.
Okay.
Right? So let's see. We already get the item. Or we may search by name and stuff like that, right? Just to see. Okay. Yeah, we get the long. We get the the long and latitude would be our current location, our item, and then trying to think about anything else that we need to do. Um.
Are we searching by a keyword?
Yes, the item would be the keyword.
Yeah, the item would be the keyword.
Mm-hmm.
Even if a user doesn't put in the entire, I think that's getting too deep. So
Yeah.
what are the type of things you return?
Yes. Thank you for asking that. We are just going to return a list of inventories. So the reason why I say this, right, is because first off, this endpoint is trying to get like the available, get all the nearby warehouses, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna use that warehouses to check for the inventories and all the that's nearby, and then
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna use that to return back towards the yeah, we're gonna filter like the actual inventories of where the item is at, and then
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna return that back to the user.
Mm. Okay.
Okay. Now the next thing is that we want to do is that we want to post an order. Let me see here. Okay. Let me see. So we want to post order, right? Do we need anything? I think right now what we're going to do is that we are just gonna do post a body. Once again, we are going to let me see, go by lat. We are going by long. Wait, Mo, give me 5 minutes. I need to go. Be right back. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry about this. Sorry about this. But be right back.
Okay. In the midst of that, I'm just gonna. We'll be right back. everyone, sorry, we're experiencing some technical difficulties. So, in the meantime, some things that I want you to notice about everything is first of all, understand how he broke down the problem, right? So, in a lot of system design interviews, sometimes people come in unprepared, not knowing what to do. But some things I want you to focus on is how he first spoke about the functional requirements. Then, after the functional requirements, he spoke about the non-functional requirements. So notice that at first I just said, "Oh, I want a local delivery service." I told him that this amount of I want this amount of customers to be able to make place an order to the distance that is closest to them. So it should not exceed 1 hour. I told him that I wanted him to ensure that multiple people can place multiple orders at the same time. Not multiple orders, but multiple items can be on an order. So these were all things that I told him. And then he by himself went to take in the information and then he started asking me more questions. And the reason this is important because before building anything out, you always want to get clarity. You want to know what are the expectations? What do people want? You want to know what are the expectations? What do people want? So he then went over to non-functional requirements, right? I didn't tell him about how many users we're expecting at first, but he dived deeper. And so when you are interviewing, when you are even designing real software, you want to be able to know who are the people that are going to be using this software, how many people are going to be using it, what is your priority? Do you want it to always be available? In our case, we do, because we're an e-commerce site. A person can wake up in the middle of the night and say, I need to order groceries, right? So that's one of the reasons why he thought about that. Thought about availability. He thought about how we want a situation where users can search for things quickly and they get it, right? So those are non-functional things that I, as a stakeholder, may not tell you, but you have to dig deeper. You have to ask more questions. Some other things that he spoke about was the core entities. So, for example, we had an item, right? Each item is part of an inventory, right? Because an inventory is a collection of items that are stored in the warehouse. So we have a warehouse, also known as a distribution center. So these are things that like you you learn as you're designing. So as a software engineer, something you have to look into is literally designing your software, having a blueprint, having a map. What models are related to each other? What's going to be sharing? What are things that are not going to be shared? These are very, very important things that you always need to keep in mind, right? Even the orders, right? One customer can have several orders with us. One customer can order several items within an order. So there's a relationship between an item and an order. So all these things are very, very important to consider. Um, all these things are very important to consider. So we're going to be continuing with, let's see. So we're going to be continuing, and uh, 1 minute, please. Okay. So okay. I hope you can see my screen. Okay, sorry for the technical difficulties. But yeah, so we have our functional requirements, we have our non-functional requirements, we have our core entities, right, including the warehouse, an order item. We also have several endpoints. So we first started with our get endpoint, but we also have a post endpoint, right? So a user should be able to order for an item. So ordering an item is post. So we have to get in the user's details. So some things like your longitude and your latitude. Um, you need your longitude, your latitude. You also need the items that they want to order, right? As we go into building, we can dive deeper, but these are just some few endpoints that we need at this point in time. Then let's talk about the high level designs, right? The high level design. So we want customers to be able to query availability for items. So they should be able to search for an item and get it easily, right? And this also has to do with their location, because we don't want a situation where a customer orders for something, it's within DC, right? Washington, DC, and they are in Chicago, right? Or they are in California. We want a situation where the distance is close, so the distribution center, we need the location of the distribution center to be able to get it. We need to make sure that the items that the customer orders are readily available, right? The items that they order are readily available. So we're going to have an availability service, right? And so what the availability service is, that is going to keep in mind our distribution center. And when Daniel comes back, he can take over. So we're going to have our availability service. And what it's going to do is that we're going to keep in mind, okay, what location is the warehouse in, right? What location is the warehouse in, and how many items does that customer want in particular? So let's look at it together. So we're going to be taking things like we're going to be using the item table, because we need to know whether, first of all, that item is available in itself, what the quantity of that item is, and then we also need the inventory table. Okay, so now our item table is going to have things like each item has a unique ID. Oh, actually, I don't need to draw that. See, each item is for the item, and each item has a unique ID, which is going to be our primary key. We have a name for the item, and we have a description. So let's say that we have eggs, right? Let's say that we have eggs, right? You can have brown eggs, you can have organic eggs, you can have eggs that are non-organic, but everything is still eggs. So in this scenario, we also have inventory. And within the inventory table, we have our item ID. So there is a relationship between these two tables. We have our item ID. We also have the warehouse ID and the quantity, because we want to know how many eggs do we have available. So we want to have the warehouse ID to know the location. Sorry about that. To know the location of the warehouse where we're going to be putting in the items. Just see if Daniel is back. Okay, I think Daniel is back. Hi, Daniel. So
Sorry for the last minute complications.
Okay. So I'm gonna add you back.
Okay.
If you scroll down, you see that I started. So we have our we have the warehouse ID, and we also have the quantity. So I'm already in the availability service quantity. So I want to know how many is available, right?
Okay.
And then we have an arrow.
Right.
Here. So for the availability service, we're going to have things like, okay, what is the warehouse that we're going to be getting the item from that the user wants to order, and what's the quantity that's available?
Okay.
Right? Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah. And one thing that I do want to make sure, just to add, right, is that because we want these to be within the 1 hour, because we also this is revolving around just getting the availability of the items, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think one thing to also know is also like we also need to check for, okay, in order to make it easier on us, right? In terms of like the getting the availability of the items, right? Because if we were to just leave this by itself, we would just be getting all the items from like all the locations, right? I think just to make it easier on us, right, is just to like first let's see, okay, what warehouses are we close by with that are like a
Mhm.
our distance,
Mm,
right? And then after that, we get all the warehouses that are nearby. Then we can use those warehouses, being like, okay, filter only this warehouse ID, like filter only by these warehouse IDs. That way, we can like narrow down the results that we are getting. So yeah, we can add an like another circle just for a warehouse table,
mhm,
like a warehouse table, and then we could just check to see, hey, availability. Can you double check on the Yeah, we could just have this being so that, hey, actually, let me do this here where we can just click on the arrow. Yeah, get nearby warehouses,
mhm,
right? And then what this does is that we just essentially, yeah, you get in the nearby warehouses, and then we say, hey, get the, like, yeah, get the inventories by filter by warehouses. So we could just have this type here, yeah, filter by warehouses. Yeah, okay. Right, and then, of course, I always like to have, like, a mini, what is it called? A mini thing, a mini this client, right? Just to be like, "Hey, client's always asking for this," right? And so what does the client every time our client always wants to be like, "Hey, I want to do this thing." It's like, "Okay, yes, you go towards the availability service," right? But
mhm.
usually, between these, would love to have a so-called API gateway.
Okay.
And then what this does is that it essentially acts like has one our load balancer just to distribute any load that we get between all the requests that we have from all the users that we use, but
Mhm,
also able to then route the specific requests that have towards the appropriate services, right?
mhm,
So we going to send this towards the client will go is going to call towards our API gateway, and then our API gateway is going to route it towards the appropriate service, right? Towards
right.
the availability service, right? And then we usually just call this API/LB. All right. Okay. So, um, was there anything else that we are missing here? Because I think right now we already solved the issue of just like, okay, we want to get all our orders within 1 hour, right? Our goal is to essentially get the nearby warehouses that are close by 1 hour, right?
Mm,
And then after that, we get all the inventories that we can, right? Saying these are the current inventories that are currently available on our warehouses, right?
mm, mhm,
Okay, so I think next thing that we want to do is that we want to at least be able to do order items, right?
mhm.
So let's focus on just trying to order the item and then go from there. And I think from that is that one thing that will help from us, right? Is definitely just adding more to this table right here that we have. We're going to add another order table. Right, and then I think on the same line, we're gonna have an order item table. Does that sound correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds good to me.
Okay.
The order item is gonna have all the items that are going to be on the order.
Okay. And then, so actually, because my memory is failing me, so you said that the order item is going to essentially be representing all the items of one order?
Yeah, so I'm thinking, do we need it right now, considering the fact that it's within the order?
Hmm. I don't think we need it right now because okay, so I think this is actually a good clarification, right, of what's going to be under the order, right?
Mm-hmm.
So order is definitely going to have the items under it, right? So like items A, B, C, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
gonna have that. Actually, we can try to talk about the order, right? Order, order is going to have the items, right? That we're going to have, right? Anything else that we want to need? Honestly, I think that's mostly it, right? Yeah. Yeah, I think so far. All right. Because the goal is just to try to order the items, right? And then after that, once we wants to create the order, we then want to say, hey, I want to double check to see, hey, of these items, right? do we have enough inventory for them, right? And so with that, we need to double check to see if we have the current amount of items that we have, right? And I think with that, one thing to note though, um, yeah, just to make sure that we are doing multiple items. But I think early on, I want to double check on the strong consistency
Mm-hmm.
to handle the two users of can buy items, right? Because while we can have this right and just essentially be good for a high level in order to solve like a on a deeper level of like, okay, how do we make sure that two people can order, right? One thing is we need to handle is like, how is our system going to be handle like the cases of, okay, if someone were to order this item, another person can do the same thing. And the
Yeah.
way of how we're going to do that is by using something called a transaction.
Mm,
Some databases have the capability of handling transactions of where if you were to essentially a row in a database will be locked, right? And so because it is being locked, another user cannot manipulate with that item until the previous user finished with the transaction,
mm,
right? This is how we make sure that we have strong consistency in terms of the order of items that we have and
mm,
making sure that like nothing is being misplaced, right?
mm,
Sure, there may be like a slower latency on getting like making sure that item is available, right?
mhm.
But in return, we're making sure that the person is getting what they want on that, right? So I want to make sure.
You know,
Uh,
let's ask our audience. Maybe if you're watching this or you ever get to watch this, you can put in a database that you know that has strong transactions, like the ability to carry out transactions, like Daniel just explained.
mm-hmm. Yes, we'll definitely love to know. Yeah, let's how strong transactions, right? Okay. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, and that's essentially of like how we want to essentially order the item. But let's actually create that towards another service. Don't want to have that in don't want to have that towards the availability service as is. Let's actually create everything. Let's actually move this a little bit more down too. Let me yeah, let me just put this more down. All right, move this down. And then let's just have the order service through here. All right. Another skill set is just moving a Scala draw. It's like the more you get used, the more you do this, the more you have to be like, huh, is Scala draw is its own technique or just drawing designs,
Yeah.
right? I remember during my early days of studying design, like I was like part of the interview process is just working through Scala draw and seeing how to draw designs on it.
Yeah, it is actually because it's a lot.
Mhm. It's a lot. It's a lot, right? I think as software engineers, this is like not really one of the things that we really were taught in school and
Yeah.
how to work unless you start to get into like more leadership positions or more designing process, right? You don't really necessarily like whiteboard a lot. So this is definitely good on just like these interview process is really good on just like giving you skills on the side.
I agree because you're completely right. Like all through my degree, I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't taught about system design. I was taught about functional and non-functional requirements, but not like drafting them out. Like I was taught the keys, right? But the
Yeah.
actual system, I wasn't. So
Mhm.
this is super important. And even for someone who maybe hasn't even graduated college, I would definitely advise that like find something to design, find something to build, and actually design the system end to end. Because some people don't know, but if you don't design a system, you may build your entire software and find out you did it wrong.
Mhm.
So you want to make sure that you actually have a blueprint that you're following before you start coding, right? Coding should be the last thing you
Mhm.
start doing when giving a feature to build or a certain service or something. But yeah.
Yes, and I definitely encourage you, like, for any design that you make, to also be able to share that towards like anybody that you know, right? Just for feedback, because like everybody makes designs, right? And but people will be like, huh? How does this work in the end of the day? And just sharing that is just process like, hey, like maybe I should try to do that for my projects as well too, right? It may not be as like complicated as like a backend system, but just like having like a project of saying, hey, you want to have a React platform connecting to this, connecting to that. It's like just try to see like how you can connect all the tools that you use in this one in a whiteboard.
Yeah, I totally, yeah, super important. Super, super.
Mhm. Okay. Going forward now, right? We showed that like we created an order service on just trying to order items, right? Let's actually make it easier just to like showcase that, hey, this is going to be referencing the, let me see here. Yep. So we can try to say, hey, we're going to be calling towards this endpoint right here. And then for this endpoint right here, you're obviously going to be calling the get availability of items, right? So also we're gonna put this on the bottom here. Yeah, we're gonna leave this here. Let's make this a bit more clear. Okay. And then other than that, right, this is essentially what we have discussed for the high level overview
Mm,
on the system.
mm,
Now that we have discussed on a high level overview, right? If that was what the whole system design interview was about, that would be great, right? But obviously, the goal is for the interviewer is to see how deep can you try to evolve the system past the initial conditions, right?
mm,
And so something that I love to think about is that, right, the high level overview is us just trying to solve the functional requirements, right?
mhm,
Now, deep diving deeper, we want to try to see on how to solve the non-functional requirements, right?
mm,
Because we want to make sure that our system is able to handle any edge cases or any rainy day scenarios, right? And so one thing, well, the one thing that we already did handle, right, is that how is to talk about how do we handle the strong consistency, right, in terms of the ordering, right?
mm,
And the way of how we do that is by handling strong transactions, right? Is
mm,
essentially use choosing a database that will essentially be having the capability of having strong transactions, and then able to then use that in order to make sure that each person cannot order the same items.
mm,
Now, another thing that we want to talk about is how do we handle scalability, right?
mhm,
I think there are plenty of ways to handle scalability, right? But I think one thing is that okay, where do you see bottlenecks that we will have to handle scalability?
mm,
I would love to believe that okay, well, yeah, one thing to handle is that, huh? I see us like, do you see yourself like ordering more, or do you see yourself window shopping more?
I see myself window shopping, and then after window shopping for maybe 5 or 6 times, then I'll place an order.
Okay, awesome, awesome, right? So I think with that, it's like I think like definitely our items table is going to be looked at often, our warehouse table is going to be looked at often, our inventory table is going to be looked at often.
Mm,
I think to make it easier on ourselves, we can try to separate, well, we already have these under one circle, like under one database, but I think right now we can try to see on how to do on separating the two, like separating the order table from these two tables. And then, okay, we may have like a bigger complexity in handling strong transactions, but I think this will help in handling the bottleneck of the tables, right? That way we
mm,
can try to handle this instead. So what we can do here is that we can try to place this under its own circle, right? And then yeah, and then so handle the strong transactions will be through here, just to see on here. All right. Okay. And then can just handle this here, put this here. Okay. And then in terms of, but because I mentioned like it's a strong bottleneck, right? How are we going to handle the availability of these is that I think we're going to use the technique called replication.
okay. Could you go
What?
deeper?
Hmm?
What's replication?
Yes. So replication is essentially a way of essentially making a data more, what was it? Idempotent. So basically, it's like we have multiples of the same data, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so what we're going to do is essentially replicate the data that we have into from our database into another instance of that database, right?
Mm-hmm.
Making sure that if imagine if one database was fully loaded with requests, right, of just getting the items, right, and we
Mm,
can no longer handle and can longer handle any load. We're going to send more the additional requests towards another instance of that same database, so that way we are able to essentially check to see if we are able to get in the instance, right? And
mm,
so what that does is essentially able to make sure that we are always able to check to see if an item is available as well.
mm. Okay.
So that will handle that as well. And then same case for warehouse table as well. Trying to think if there's any other way of like also like we go I think there's also another way of trying to handle the load on the warehouse table, right?
Mm,
Because imagine if a case where we okay user they are hardly are going to change locations, right?
mm-hmm.
And because they're hardly going to change locations, the number of items that they ask for is going to be different each time. But in terms of the warehouses, they're always going to be the same warehouses, right?
Yeah, warehouses are not varied.
Yeah, and so what we can do is that instead of replicating this, we can use something we can try to do it like a caching technique
Mm,
of saying, hey, um imagine the result of you getting a warehouse, right? We could try to have that in sort of a cache instance, right? So it could be
mm-hmm.
in a case of a nearby cache, like whatever was the result. Yeah, where nearby warehouses, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're going to do is that we're going to check to see, hey, have we ever called the results of the nearby warehouses before, right? If we have, then good, just return this, right? But if
Mm-hmm.
we haven't, then we're gonna do our query for the first time from here. All
Yeah.
right. So yeah, so with this, right, we are able to handle like um the the availability. So essentially, we're able to handle the scalability of the users, right, by handling the loads on the particular, just getting the availability of the houses, and able to
Mm,
make sure that we are essentially are always able to like get the inventories that we needed. And then strong consistency we handle by through the order table, and then I mentioned low latency, yeah, on getting availability items. That is also being handled by the cache, right?
yeah.
Yeah, because we are able to essentially like always making sure that we're always going to be getting like nearby houses from our caching system. And it's no the anytime when we are able to get the results from our warehouse, right? We are always able to update the cache from here. Okay. Is there anything else that I am missing, Mo?
I think right now what you have is actually very good.
Okay.
I like the fact that you spoke about data replication. I like how you spoke about caching. I like how you spoke about transactions, which are very, very important concepts. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and for anyone who views this, like when you watch it, tell me about some experiences you have, like maybe a time when you designed something you didn't think about transaction, or you didn't think about data replication. But I think this is very, very good. Thank you so much, Daniel, for this. I wanted you to share how you got so good at learning all these concepts. So, for example, transactions, data replications, caching. What made you know about these things ahead of time?
Yeah, so I can tell you like my journey into like learning about system design started around 2023, late 2023, and my
Mm,
first experience was legit just learning about an Audible interview saying hey, a system design interview was happening. I was like, oh, I only have a month left. How do I say system designs? Thankfully there were some books by Alex Zhu of
mm,
starting system designs. You can Google his name and then it would be Alex and then XU. His two volumes of learning system designs are very good of just like cramming. Definitely
mm,
more so the first one than the second one. Second one is a bit more deeper, but in terms of learning more about the concepts of system designs, I highly will recommend just going through a standard course.
Mm,
Um, and just learning about each of the concepts, because each of the concepts are definitely going to be mentioned towards learning about the concepts of key component system designs. And then after going through either of the sources, hello interview is very good, right? It gives
mm,
you not only a concepts of popular system design questions, but also practice guides of going through system design questions as well, making sure that you are properly prepared. And then finally, mock interviews. Mock interviews are the biggest indicator of just like seeing if you are prepared for system designs, because at the end of the day, it's just you discussing with the person on how you build this system, right? There's no strict correct answer on building out a system, because everybody at the end of the day has a different way of approaching building out a system, right? Of building out Uber, building out GoPuff, right? And it's building out like a system, right? But it's like how you articulate your decision and approaches. That's how they mostly keep track of like whether you're a strong candidate or not. And then in terms of mock interviews, you can try to discuss with a friend. You can discuss with try exponent as well. Very good resources. But also, yeah, just try to also practice on keeping it in good lingo, either with like engineers that you already know, or people that are not even experienced in system design. You can just talk to with them and try to see if they understand your language, right? Because if you can relate this towards other people that doesn't know anything about what you're talking about, then you're already doing good and just implicating your system.
wow. Thank you so much, Daniel. And thank you for joining this live. For everyone who's watching, thank you. You can share this video with your study group team, your study group partners. Tell the world about system design. So, yes, we hope you have an amazing day. And yeah, bye.
Bye.
Okay.